Warning: the following program may contain material not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Find a depth unknown, our voice begins to rise, breaking through the noise with fire in its eyes. The spirit of adventure burning ever bright. Hold on tight, travelers, it's gonna be alright. Another week burning, halfway to the end. Bonus Overdrive, attend at the tears ascend. Bonus Overdrive, a Wednesday night is here. Shatter the silence, conquer all your fear. Bonus Overdrive, the angels gonna scream. With Diego at the wheel, living out a dream.
It's time to find out with Diego. Let's go. Ooh, yeah.
On this episode of Bonus Overdrive Wednesday, our guest has spent nearly 3 decades balancing two worlds that couldn't be more different. From the underground hardcore metal scenes of Pittsburgh to the quiet halls of funeral homes in the DMV. After years of managing bands and booking tours, he returned to his roots to focus on his most important mission yet. Now a veteran mortician and pre-planning expert, he joins us to share how he's helping families find peace of mind through education and protection. All this plus more. Please welcome our new friend and first-time guest, my mortician friend, Jamie Arthurs. Jamie, my friend, welcome to Bonus Overdrive Wednesday.
Awesome, Diego. Thank you so much for having me, man. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited to have you here. As we were talking in the pre-interview, you are, other than me going to funerals, I've gone to plenty because the older I get, the more I go. And
That
that's a
happens to
sad
everyone,
thing.
man.
Right.
That's everyone.
Regardless, you're actually the first mortician I've actually set a one-on-one with. So tons of questions, and I know you've heard a lot of them before. And I also have a couple questions from our friends who are listeners, also people at work.
Awesome.
Very interested in your line of work. So hopefully these questions aren't too out of line, but I'll make sure about that. Before we start, your life, very interesting.
Okay.
And first, I'd like to thank you for helping me with the episode I released a couple of weeks ago with Age of Ruin. What fantastic guys were, all class act.
Phenomenal band, phenomenal people. Love them.
That's one of the first things we're going to start talking about, man, because as I said, your life very interesting. Different careers. And I guess sometimes punk and heavy metal and morticians sometimes take very, very different. But sometimes I feel that the music and lyrics, sometimes it kind of brings those things together, depending on who you're listening to, of course.
Definitely.
And of course, it's my kind of music, man. We could talk all night long about music. How did this all begin? Let's go back to Pittsburgh, back a few years ago, where you were promoting the metal and the punk concerts. Yeah. So how did you get into that?
So a couple of friends of mine and I had a friend named Dave. He lives in Ireland now. My friend Evan and my friend Ted, we started promoting concerts in and around Pittsburgh. Dave had some contacts. I knew some people, and we did some stuff in Butler, PA, and then we did stuff in Pittsburgh at a place that used to be called Club Laga. We were the first people who do shows at Club Laga back in 96, 97. So we did shows. Our first show was like Earth Crisis and VOD. Then we did one for Downset and someone else. So we did one for the Insane Clown Posse. Like, this was before the Insane Clown Posse were what they are now. They were chill dudes. We talked about wrestling, and they were still sponsored back then by Faygo Soda. So they had 2 trampolines on the side of the stage. And they would take Faygo soda bottles, shake them up, and bounce them off these trampolines. So 2 years later, the club opened up the roof to kind of give it a second level. The ceiling was still sticky from the soda 2 years later. It just made me giggle a ton. And then, so I really loved promoting and kind of that aspect. And I knew the guys in Zayo, I knew the guys in the Jelena Theory, all from the Pittsburgh area. Moved down here in fall of 97. And spring of 98, got back into promoting shows, met some people down here, my friend Chris and some other people I used to run an independent space in Baltimore called the Chop Shop with my friends Mike Riley and a few other people up there, and slowly just got into promoting more shows. Out of that, became managing bands. Like the Jelana Theory was the first band I started to manage. And I remember like talking to the guys one time. They stayed at my house. They're like, "Oh, do you want to manage us? We need someone to be a dick for us at times." I was like, "Sure, I'll go ahead and be a dick for you at times. Why not?" And it just kind of snowballed from there. And it got to the point when it went so well, I was able to not be a mortician for a couple of years and just book shows and manage bands, promote shows, and live like, a DIY punk rock lifestyle, which is great.
That's one of those things. You hear a lot of stories about bands, their history, what they do, different bands. Nobody really, not say nobody, but on the street level, the end user, the listeners, the fans of the music, you don't really hear too many stories. People who manage the bands, do the bookings, do the tours, do the planning. I couldn't imagine, because not only, so let's say you're putting on a show and different bands, not only do you have to deal with the egos with different bands, but you also have to deal with different personalities and possibly egos within the band itself.
Yep.
How do you balance that? Because I could imagine that's quite you're herding cats, but these are heavy metal cats,
Sometimes it's herding cats. Other times that you're kind of more of a social worker or a parent, right? You're the rock in that foundation, trying to help keep it moving, keep it together, keep people realize that, shit doesn't happen overnight, man. Like you got to put effort in, you got to work at it. The old adage was it would take 7 years from what you thought you wanted to do to where you want to be at in that dream. And I think that kind of holds true even till today. But there's so many phone calls at 2 a.m, way before we had the cell phones that we have now, and we had internet in the palm of our hands. This is like the early 2000s. So flip phones, MapQuest directions, like spending hours putting together a tour itinerary book for a band that was a full U.S. tour, with the first page is going to be details for the show, what they're getting paid, what their rider was, signed contracts, then MapQuest directions from point A to point B for them, hotels in the city, people they could stay with, everything they needed. So like a tour book would literally be like a 3-inch binder for them to take on the road.
Wow. And I remember those days. I had a Razor. I don't know about you. Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool with the Razor.
The Razors was fun. I never had a Razor. I had Nokias. An old friend of mine had those, the sidekicks. You remember the sidekicks that had the keyboard and all that? And they were more they had those.
You also had a BlackBerry. I thought it was a baller with that BlackBerry.
Dude, I've probably buried a dozen different BlackBerries with people in my time, man. Like that was such a weird thing, because like people don't bury phones anymore, but BlackBerries were something that people were like, okay, he loved his BlackBerry. Can we bury it with him? I was like, if you want to, sure. Just make sure it's turned off. I don't want it ringing, during the service. And people would bury their BlackBerries with them. It's crazy.
You're going down the avenue of the questions I'm coming up with. I'm going to get there, because now you piqued my interest, as well as my friends, the listeners.
There we go.
Bonus Overdrive Wednesday. Now, talking about the bands and the tours, we're talking about also club owners, or event halls. And there was a club, I'm sure it's not the only one, but there are some clubs out there that, the bands would get booked there, but their pay was depending on how much tickets they sold. So I used to stand in line to see a band, so sometimes you see the other bandmates hustle to sell tickets so you could buy it from them.
Mm-hmm.
Is that still a common thing, or?
I hope it's not, man. Like that was always one of the craziest things, like when trying to book a national tour for a band, or even book a band locally in the DMV or other areas. It's like, well, if they sell tickets, they can keep what they sell. I'm like, dude, this band's a touring band. No, there are still dates and venues that only do door deals. So like the bands who are playing will get 80 or 90% of the door after a certain amount of money. There's a lot of that. Sometimes those are beneficial. Like if you're playing a smaller club on an off night, and you're the headlining band, and you're going to take 80% of the door after $200, that could be really good. But I can't imagine like now, like when I was booking tours in the late 90s, early 2000s, like the opening bands on a tour would get $100 or $150. Like if you're in a van right now in an RV, that's not going to even fill up your tank. So I can't imagine what it is now trying to book a band that is making $200 to $300 a night as a guarantee. You know?
No, that reminds me. In my wrestling days, I think it was at what time? What was it, about 2008? It was 7, 8, or 9. And of course, I was a wrestler broke. And in the Indies, I think gas got up to like $4.25 a gallon at one point. And when you go to the pay window, they're handing you a couple of bills. Like, how am I going to get home?
Yeah.
So I basically lived off of cheap cappuccino and gummy bears. So I could afford. With that, I don't know how bands survived back then. I know there's selling of the merch, and then sometimes it's before even downloads. Hopefully, you still have a few CDs here and there to get you to the next town. Technology, the way it is now, is it's good and it's bad. But I would imagine it gets a lot easier for bands to spread their brand worldwide as compared to those early days.
Yeah, definitely. So, like, I mean, you're old enough to remember, like, going to shows and there were distros at shows, or you heard from bands like mixtapes, or like, hey, check out this 7-inch from this band that I found. Like, that was that back then. I think the reach is way more now, but the income's less in a lot of ways because bands don't really make anything from streaming at all. Like, there's not even pennies on the dollar. It's percentages of pennies on the dollar is what they make off a stream. So you have bands that are streaming 1 million streams on Spotify, and they're maybe making, a couple grand,
It's terrible.
It was horrific. And then when you look at like touring, bands still have to tour because that's really still where they make their money. Even if you look at bands that are a band that can go sell out like the 930 Club, or it's 1,500, 2,000 people a night, they're touring 6 months a year. And dude, and even if you're in a bus, that's still a lot on your body. Like, if you're older, you have kids, like, it gets difficult after a while. So even a lot of those people have diversified. They have other jobs. They run other businesses. They do other things to help offset the money. So
now on the manager side,
yeah.
what kind of tools does that take on you?
I mean, back then, like, it was my main business. So I would just work whenever I had to work. There was definitely a lot of, I guess, going back to the parental aspect of like, holy crap, did that just happen? Did they just do that? Like, there's a band I managed who would routinely forget. They would routinely run late, and not like an hour late, like hours late. They'd sometimes have to go on after the headliner because they showed up so late, and they would forget their cash box, because back then you didn't take debit cards, you didn't take credit cards. It was all cash. So they would forget their cash box at places they stayed. So they'd be like, oh shit, we forgot our cash box. We're 2 hours into the drive, or the 5-hour drive. We have to turn around and go get the cash box. Like, things like that. I was like, how are you doing this? Like, you guys are all in your early 20s. Someone has to have a brain between the four of you. Someone has to remember this. Like, who's that person that can remember this, please? Let me know who that person is.
I mean, at least put it in a briefcase and handcuff yourself to it while you're
Or
sleeping.
just, like, put it in your suitcase, your backpack, something, and like, what was the Adam Sandler special like 2 years ago, where he's just like, before I leave my house, I have my phone, wallet, keys, and you keep on checking, like you keep on checking everything. You have your phone, wallet, keys, like phone, wallet, cash box. So you have your shit, and you don't lose it. I mean, different when a van gets broken into, or there's an accident or something like that. Mm-hmm. But like, how do you forget the thing that you need to pay for things? Boggled my mind.
But you've seen it. That's the thing. You've seen that kind of things. Well, which brings me now to this was a source of income for you for a little while, but you've had a career as a mortician for many years.
Yep.
And I'm going to throw this observation out there.
Yeah.
As a regular guy, I don't think there's, in my opinion, I don't think there's a career that most people would say, yeah, I want to become a mortician. Now, there had to have been something in your life that said, this interests me, because for the most part, a mortician wears many hats. It's not just one thing; it's a lot of things. So, it can't get. For me, I did a little bit of reading on it, and I was like, wow, that's a lot of stuff. So let's talk about how you first got into this.
Yeah. So So I grew up outside of Pittsburgh in a small town called Fallsview, West Virginia, about 40 minutes outside the city. So I consider the Pittsburgh area home. But I was going to the community college into the nursing program, and there was issues with hospitals, and I was already working as a nurse's aide. So a friend of mine was like, if you want to be a nurse, like you should be a mortician. You make a great mortician. I was like, sure, why not? Right? Like I grew up watching surgeries like with my mom on Discovery on Saturdays and Sundays. Like I grew up watching 80s horror films. So like the gore aspect that people think about sometimes never really bothered me. And I wanted to be in the field helping people. And when you help someone through such a difficult emotional time, like we've all experienced someone who's died that's been close to us, whether it's a parent, a friend, spouse, whoever it might be. If you have someone there that is warm and receptive and leans in and listens and helps you do a beautiful celebration and gathering for your loved one, like it's really meaningful. Like when I went through mortuary school, they never told us that you'd get thank you cards, you get hugs, you get invited over here for dinner, you'd get gifts from people. Like it's the craziest thing I never thought I would do in that aspect. But like I've gotten books from like authors I've worked with. I've gotten cash tips from people, which still throws me off to this day. Like, please don't give me cash. I don't want that. I'm getting paid at my job. Like, I'm here to help you. But even years down the line, I'll see people who helped 15 years ago, and they'll still just give me a hug and like we'll catch up on families. It's a beautiful thing, man.
And the way you speak about it, it's very heartwarming in a way, because as I kept reading part of the bio that you sent me and doing more research, there comes a time where, I mean, you, just like in music industry, you've seen it all, you've experienced a lot of things, which is going to bring me here for a couple of questions from a couple of the listeners that I know.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I'm definitely going to get into that, because I think that that's some of the first questions people really ask, I would assume.
Okay.
I'm going to start with one from T-Dog, because
Okay.
T-Dog is really, really cool. I'm going to give you a little background on this.
Okay.
There are cultures out there, I believe it's South America, I could be wrong, I'm most definitely wrong, where it might even be here in America too. People bring their cultures. People, they're going to do what they want to do. Where, let's say, I'm going to pick a random. Uncle Billy passes away, right? His favorite thing was to drink a Coors Light on the couch, wear a San Diego Chargers t-shirt, and his favorite fishing cap. Now, there are some cultures out there that'll actually have someone recreate that moment, and then they'll visit the deceased, the uncle. I'm gonna say Uncle Billy, pay their respects and do that, but they'll see him as he wanted to be seen. Or jumping on that with T-Dog's question, what is the weirdest request a family has requested when it comes to setting up a service?
I've never had, in 27 years, had a family ask to put someone in something that wasn't like a casket. We had once, I've done a couple home funerals where we've had that, where someone's in the recliner. I know, being up from Pittsburgh, I'm a big Steelers fan. When the Steelers won the Super Bowl against the Seahawks, and Jerome Bettis dropped he was on the 1 yard line, he dropped the ball, and they almost scored the other way. There was a guy in Pittsburgh, because I remember seeing it, who had a heart attack at that moment watching that game. And a funeral home in Pittsburgh laid him out in his recliner in the funeral home with the TV on, his Steelers everything. What has kind of become of it now? Like, I can't think of any place that was that like that. But now, when people think funeral, sometimes they think very kind of black and somber and quiet. Dude, they're parties, man. Like wine, beer, music. We had a lady, who loves salsa, so we brought in a salsa teacher to do salsa lessons at her funeral. Like they're parties, they're gatherings. Like, dude, my services are planned and paid for, because that's what I do and I live in. My son's 19 right now. God forbid I die, it's on him to figure out. Like, I'm a dork. I love Star Wars. I love Legos. I love Cards Against Humanity. So I have a playlist made on Spotify for my funeral playlist. I have I want people telling their favorite dad jokes. I want people kind of having a party and having fun. And I want Cards Against Humanity because I find the game really funny. Played at my funeral because it'll be fun. Like people are going to be, hopefully people will be sad that, whenever I die. But I want like the aspect when it comes to healing from grief is that moment for that celebration where people get to start to tell stories and they laugh and they share memories and they embrace and they give hugs. That makes that grief a little bit lighter and a little bit easier that day and a little bit lighter and easier moving forward. The celebration of life is such an important thing through the grief process for people that people, for whatever reason, move away from sometimes, and they really shouldn't because you need that. You need to have that gathering, whether it's a bunch of people going out for a beer at Bob's favorite bar, or it's something at the funeral home or something more traditional. It's all up to that person.
Wow, man, it's it's quite a thing because everybody handles these type of services very differently. And I think
Correct.
the way of celebration of life is a little healthier way to cope.
Agreed.
Because it takes people quite a long time to get over some things. But I think something like that is very helpful because who wouldn't want to hear some of their favorite stories about grandpa, how he was maybe a soccer star somewhere, or expert fisherman, or he taught you how to ride a bike, things like that.
Yeah, but even people that like for you, like you were a semi-professional wrestler. Tell the stories about you and your wrestling persona, or stories about you on the road. Like it's really awesome to hear those stories and hear people laugh and learn stuff about the person that you didn't know. Like when my dad died in 2014, his cousin Craig was also in the service. And Craig was like, your dad was on the backup ship for the Apollo in like 67, right? And I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, because my dad was working on an aircraft carrier. And he was like, oh, he was like the backup ship. If the first ship couldn't get to it, he was on the backup ship. I was like, I never knew that. Dad never told me. There's things like that.
Man, that's an awesome story. I would tell it to my grandkids, my great grandkids, and so on. Because that's not something everybody gets to do in life.
No, and it was
only a chosen people.
Yeah, it's just like it's stories like that people don't hear. And I think there's a certain generation, right? When you look at some boomers, and especially some of the silent generation, especially the men, because they were told to the way you show love is by working hard and by being there and being stoic and your love is shown through how much effort you put into it, how much work you do, and how you provide for your family that way. Not how you lean in, not how you show emotion, not how you give hugs, not how you say I love you. They push off having a funeral. Like people don't want to bother with it. People love you. People want to be bothered. People are going to be upset that you died. People want to show that they loved you and cared about you and hear these stories.
The second question, jumping on that, kind of similar. But no, it's a little bit more of a I'm gonna say a morbid question, but I think I can understand the curiosity because, again, it's one of those things people ask. Our good friend DV asks, "What's the most interesting condition that you come to see somebody at a body?"
So, I'm gonna try the cleanest way to describe this. So people have to realize, like, when people die, like, morticians are the people who go out to funerals professionals are people who go out to the location to get them. Sometimes that's on the side of the road. Sometimes that's, in a hospital. Sometimes in the nursing. Sometimes that's in the woods, 200 yards into the woods, because that's what you have to do, and so bodies who've been dead for a couple of days or a couple of weeks, fully decomposed, like, I've seen all of that. In 27 years, I've only gagged once. So that's a plus. I've seen people who, because the aromas depending on when the person passed and how long, some of the aromas are really, really strong and really, really pungent. And they definitely take your breath away. As far as the weirdest thing, I can probably say this, that I've ever seen, there was a person I picked up years ago in their house. And the neighbors in there figured out something was wrong because the guy's grass was about 3 feet high and he kind of lived down a side road and not close to someone. And I walked into the house. It was a decent sized house. We walked in, there was like an entryway. He kind of made a right into the living room and then dining room and left into the kitchen. when you walk in the house, you heard like a vibrating sound, like wonder what that was. And when I walked into the kitchen, the first thing the gentleman was deceased, right in the first area of the kitchen. But on the other side of the kitchen, about 15, 20 feet away, was like a breakfast nook. And the windows were covered in flies. And that vibrating sound I heard was all the flies vibrating on the window.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, so that sticks out in my head. I can still hear the sound. Like PTSD for morticians is pretty real because we see so much and we don't. Like the burnout rate in the mortuary field is about 50%. 50% of people get in the field will usually get out within 5 years. There's just, and just with the medical field, alcoholism and addiction issues are big within the field as well. But the field's gotten better with having open conversations, especially with the professionals in the field. It's just like, I need to talk about this happened and this happened, and trying to have those conversations, especially internally, just like nurses do and doctors do, of like, I need to get this off so I can talk to someone, and it's good.
And that was one of the things I was going to bring up as far as mental health.
Yeah.
You see things kind of like first responders, policemen, firemen, even I guess soldiers out in the battlefield. You start seeing some things, people in conditions you really aren't prepared to see. And some of these things stick in your mind. So,
yes.
And I know it's talking about it within a group.
Mm-hmm.
How do you deal with it on an individual basis? Are you meditating? Are you just listening to your music? Are you an artist? What do you do?
So I think and so I don't really do the hands-on work too much anymore. I do what we call pre-planning, where I'm helping people plan months or years in advance of that last life celebration. When I was doing that, one of the things that got me out of the field when I was managing bands, so I was still working as a mortician, managing bands, promoting shows. One of the things that got me out of the field was I had this reoccurring dream off and on for about a year and a half, to where my parents died and one of my niece or nephews died because they had custody of them when they were younger. And I'd walk in, the scene it still sticks out. I'd walk into the funeral home. There'd be 3 caskets. It'd be my mom, my dad, and my niece or my nephew. And it was this constant dream I had for about a year and a half. And I was like, I need to step away. This is good timing. Let me step away and do this. And I'll just kind of take a mental break. But I think leaning on coworkers is a huge aspect. Luckily, the company I work for, DB Memorial, has an internal care line that we can call if we need someone to talk with, to vent. The insurance we have with them is great. They can recommend therapists. But I think therapy as general for anyone that deals with anything is a great thing to do, because if you don't process what you're seeing and what you're dealing with on a daily basis, it's going to come out in some other way, whether that's anger or that's depression or your addiction. It's coming out in some way, shape, or form. So the trauma that someone deals with on a daily basis, you got to figure out. And for me, punk rock and hardcore was an outlet for me. I mean, like, especially when I was younger, not as much now. I'm 51. Like, I don't want to get kicked in the head anymore or have someone jump or land on me. But like back then, when I was in my 20s, like, it was such a release to go to a show and get out the frustration and get out the anger and get out the sadness and just go and be in that moment for that 20-minute set or that 45-minute set, and just be in that moment was always beautiful.
Yeah, and you and I kind of twinsies because we're the same age, and
Yeah.
I don't go into pit no more. I don't go in the front row.
Like it's such a rarity. Like for Bane, I'll go in. I won't go crazy, but I'll be up front and deal with people landing on me. Zayo is that another band, because I've known them for years. Like, I'll go up front and sing along and dance a bit, and then that's probably it. Like, it's too much. Like, I love some of the younger bands. I love Haywire. I love Speed. I love, a lot of these younger bands, but at the same time, like, I can't be near that. I'll sit back and watch and enjoy and laugh at people. Like, oh, you did that flip and you landed on your back. That must hurt. Like, I'll be that guy. I'm fine with being the old guy in the back of the room.
Well, at that age, their bones are still soft. They'll recover.
They will.
But speaking of going to shows, I'm going off on a tangent. I've been to a proper show since 2010. This is we're talking about Jax back in the day. I saw Primal Fear, one of the best German power metal bands in my opinion. Now, the reason I don't go it's not even the cost. Thankfully, I have a okay job and I can actually afford to buy a
Yeah.
ticket if I save up enough money. But some of these bands I want to see on a Wednesday or a Thursday night, all right, brother, I gotta get up at 4 in the morning.
Yep.
I can't do it.
Can't do it.
No, and as much as I really want, it's like, oh, it's once in a lifetime. Well, no, I can't do it. But one day, if I take vacation the next day, I think it's appropriate. You know, vacation day.
Yeah, there was I had dinner with a friend of mine before this, and we were talking, and like Page 99 played the Autobar back in the fall, like early winter. And it was a Thursday, Wednesday or Thursday night. And they went on, they're supposed to go on at like 10:45. They went on like at 11:15. I was like, I can't stay for their entire set. I gotta go home. I'm gonna stay for like 3 songs and go. It's like I can't do it. It's too late.
I did
Too
that
late.
once, and then I'm gonna close out my experience at shows. There was a band, I'm
Yeah.
not gonna name them. I've seen them 5 times, and each time they get me because they're the headliner. But it always takes them from the time the band before them ends, so they go on, it's an hour.
That's horrible.
It is. I'll tell you offline what it was. It was a Jax. I'll tell you it was a Jax, but
Okay.
I'll tell you offline. And now for I think one of the most important questions of all.
Yeah.
We're talking about pre-planning.
Yep.
And inevitably somebody is gonna get charge of planning some of these things.
Yeah.
Funeral expenses, where's it gonna be, what's gonna happen. We're not even talking about dividing up property and stuff like that.
Mhm.
That's kind of the lawyer talk stuff.
Yep.
What is, in your opinion, what is the best advice for somebody to prepare when, and I'm going to put it in this scenario, when they know somebody's eventually going to go to the other side? So, what advice would you give somebody to prepare themselves properly for this unfortunate event?
The sooner you start the conversation, the better, right? We're all gonna die at some point in time. There's not a way around that. Death takes all of us. There's not a way around it. There's just not. So the more open you are about it, the more comfortable you are talking about it. Like, it's an emotional topic and it's difficult, but in almost, as you said, almost 3 decades of doing this, I've never had a family be angry or upset that their loved one prepaid or pre-planned their services at all. So it's a polar opposite of like, they're so thankful, they're so happy because they can really concentrate on celebrating that life and grieving versus how do we pay for this? How are we coming up with $15,000, $20,000, whatever it is, to pay for this? How, what's the song that Dad wanted played again when we brought his casket out? I can't remember. I've had families forget that their parents are veterans, and we don't have a flag on the casket because they didn't tell us, and we asked them, they just forgot. Like, when people prepay their services, they save about 20% because they don't emotionally overspend. Like, we've all gone to the grocery store hungry, as old as this analogy is. When you go to the grocery store hungry, you overspend because you're thinking with your stomach, not your budget, not your head. When someone comes into a funeral home grieving, it's not that the funeral home's taking advantage of them. It's the fact they are thinking with their heart, not their budget, not their head, the way you do or I would, or any person would who would go in and plan their own services. They're being more budget mindful. They're going, okay, this is what I really want. I don't want my kids having to spend this kind of money. I want something this way. I want this music played. I want this simple urn. They are more precision oriented when they pre-plan than when the emotion takes over when the death occurs. So once again, my best advice is have the open, frank conversations now. You mentioned the legal stuff. Have the conversation about the will if you don't have one. Have the conversation about the power of attorney if you don't have one. Make sure you're having the conversations with your parents now. Like this coming weekend, not to date the episode, like we're going to be snowed in some capacity on Saturday or Sunday and a Monday. If you're lucky enough to be with your family or to call them, have those tough conversations, not because you're wanting it to happen. It's just going to happen anyways. And if you bury your head in the sand, it's still going to happen. And you'll be so thankful that if you take the 10, 15, 20 minutes to have a conversation with your loved ones about what they want or what you want, it's an easy conversation to have. You just got to get the first 2 words out. And that's it. And it goes. And then you'll be so thankful down the line that you have the conversation. The perfect example is my dad. He came down to visit July of 2014, a few months before he died. And he was a veteran, so he got burial property outside of Pittsburgh at this really old, kind of small, crappy cemetery that we weren't real keen on. And I was like, hey, if I get you cremated, if you're cremated when your death occurs, you can go to Arlington. My dad was a huge history buff. He loved his time in the service. And Arlington's always going to be Arlington. It's beautiful. Doesn't matter the administration. Arlington is always going to be Arlington. And then, unfortunately, he died that October. So if I wouldn't have had that conversation with him, my mom most likely would have buried him in that crappy, shitty cemetery that's not well maintained and not well kept. And it would have been hurtful to try to go back there to see him because not knowing how well that place is kept. Whereas Arlington, he was cremated. Bring us a long wait for Arlington. But eventually down the line, whenever my mom's death occurs, her services are paid for. I took care of all that. So she'll eventually go and be laid to rest with my dad at Arlington. And whether I live here in the DC area or I live someplace else, Arlington's always going to be Arlington. There's always going to be people there. You know, it's just having the difficult conversations now saves so much more heartache later. They just do.
Yeah, you know, and I really appreciate that advice because if anybody would know, that would be you. And I think that probably one of the most important takeaways from this interview is the pre-planning and how to prepare yourself for it. And don't be scared to have the conversation because it can definitely save you headaches down the road.
Yes, 100%. Headaches, not just like headaches, but like emotional and financial fatigue and stress. It's going to save all of that.
Excellent. And I really appreciate your words, my friend. You know, I think down the road, probably in the near future, we're going to run into each other at one of the Age of Ruin shows. And I look forward to meeting you in the band, and we'll keep our conversations going.
Dude, that'd be awesome. Thank you so much for having me, man. This has been a blast. You know, if there's anyone that has questions or anything, please share my information with them. They can email me, they can call, they can text, whatever they want to do.
Thank you, my friend.
All content on this broadcast is a property of Diego the Podcaster and is served directly from our servers with no modification, redirects, or rehosting. All celebrity impersonators are paid performers. The impersonated celebrities do not endorse or promote any views or opinions expressed by our guests, Diego the Podcaster, or Bonus Overdrive Wednesday. The information shared on Bonus Overdrive Wednesday is provided on an as-is basis, with no guarantees of completeness, accuracy, usefulness, or timeliness.